Time to talk to State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for another Tacky Talk. This will be the last one of January 2026, Tacky.
How time flies, Joe. Before we blink, a month is gone in our lifetimes, but also the beginning of a second of the 2 year session as the clock ticks down to the end of July. So we got 5 months left in the session. I know it sounds like a long time when you say it at this time of year, but we talked about this in the past. When you're living a life on a 2 year cycle, where you have hearings done within well, actually 1 year because, or less than 1 year because committee chairs weren't assigned to very late this year, last year. And of course, we live on a 2 year election cycle as well, not just a 2 year legislative cycle. So it creates this rogue mentality. And, as I like to keep reminiscing, I'm getting older, folks. I do reminisce more than ever. I can't believe I've lived under this type of system pretty much my entire adult life.
Yeah, we were saying before we started recording over 30 years.
Yeah, this is 31 years. When I walked into the state, I was through intern for Michael Bellotti when he was a state representative in January. So I applied for internships during the fall and winter when I was at Brandeis, Jim Sheets' office when he was mayor. As we know, he just passed away. Jerry Studs, who was a congressman at the time, and there was actually Michael Bellotti, state rep, that actually returned my call back in the days when landlines and voicemails, and
Yeah.
you had to send letters to folks, and you had to figure out their addresses by looking up in a phone book or find a political almanac or some kind of resource. And I did, had my schedule at Brandeis University set up so I could do my on-campus job, my off-campus job, my weekend job, and
Hmm.
also go to the state. I was an intern for Mike. So it's quite a load. People don't always realize that I've actually had been doing 2 or 3 paid jobs plus internships through the majority of my college years. Basically, actually throughout my college years, I at least had 2 jobs, plus the fact that I would run an internship on top of everything else.
Yep, he's the hardest working legislator, folks.
Well, I would like to have that someday retire. I'm
Yes.
looking for the retirement someday, everyone. But no, I'm very understanding of kids that have to work through high school. I had a job or two through my high school years. Very grateful to get paid and keep out of trouble in the summer, so to speak. But also had to make ends meet through my university years. And
Mm.
I went to law school at night as well. I worked at the state house during the day, and we did night school 4 nights a week. And your break is very short because you have the Christmas period, and then the legislative session ends at the end of July, which means that gave me basically 3 weeks in August. In all seriousness, because you have to do cleanup after the session closes and do the prep before the session opens. And the school year for law school started either right before Labor Day or right after Labor Day. And of course, I'm in politics, so you got campaigning for
Hmm.
either your elected, in case Michael Morrissey, or someone else's we're supporting.
Great.
So I mean, it was, again, I don't miss running around nonstop for like 120 hours a week. And working on things like communication resources, working with QCAP, working with Work Inc., working with various local organizations on top of everything else. So as I have picked up a few more gray hairs as I age, I have to admit that I have to repace my life if I want to continue to work in the capacity I am most effectively for you all.
Yes, indeed. Sometimes age does catch up with us, believe me, I know.
Well, it's nothing like almost 2 feet of snowstorm to remind you how old you are.
That's so true. We're recording this the Tuesday after the big storm, and I think well, up atop Blue Hill, the official total was 25.3 inches. So it's about that here in Quincy too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I live across from Black Street Marsh, one of the lowest importance level of street plowing. I've lived here pretty much most of my life. We originally lived in South Quincy, my dad's first house, and then as a baby, got to this house in South Street, and then moved to Wallaston when I got to school age. And yeah, I mean, I've gotten used to the off the water, off the marshland winds. It was actually difficult sleeping. Just the amount of wind was going on, hitting the side of the house with these very light. But once they hit your house, they stop being light. Snow, fluffy snow, and
Right.
I have snow banks outside. that are about 3+ feet because of the snow, and then some sections was only like 4 inches.
It's so funny the way it drifts. Yeah.
Yeah, the drifts made it quite difficult. So I mean, thankfully some of the easier sections were good, but then you hit the drift, and I'm like, I got to move 3 feet of this, and so I mean, I shouldn't have to say this because the news, if you watch local news, they covered it, right? Lift your legs, shovel forward, take a break. This is not a sprint. Go back and warm up. It's still going to be there when you come back out.
Yes, not melting anytime soon this week, that's for sure.
Yep. The air is dry, hydrate, moisturize. This dry air doesn't help. And you can't get a sunburn, like the skiers do when you got a bright day. That was this morning was very bright. Now it's clouded up a bit. But I mean, the sun hits the snow, hits your face, and then you
Yeah,
can
that's a real thing. Yep.
and you can get snow blindness.
Yeah, yeah. Happens on the water too, and even in the summertime, there's sun reflecting off the water.
Yeah, so just be conscious of that, and for the sake of your neighbors and your mailman and yourself, don't forget to de-ice when you can. It should be cold enough that if you start to de-ice, or even if you're doing it in the evening when you get home from work, or first thing in the morning before you leave the office to go to work, it should evaporate pretty well. It's very dry air. So I'm sure you've heard this before. Just keep that in mind, and get out of the way of the snow plows, and also keep in mind of your pets. This is this is kind of weather that can adversely affect them when they're outside.
Right. Yep. Yep. One thing that was notable that didn't get talked about this particular storm was the MBTA. It seemed to do pretty good.
Yeah. Again, I do know the T is imperfect. I do know people want 100% perfection. We're trying to get to 99%. We're not quite to 99% perfection. Phil Ing has done an incredible job. He's from a transit system that was really troubled in Long Island. So we got the right guy for this. I wish the governor did not put him in Secretary of Transportation, trying to do two jobs at once. Obviously, the preference we have is to keep him at MBTA for us in the MBTA communities. I'm not going to say that T is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it is improving. And he's a guy that comes from the Northeast that knows how to run a winter system where people don't realize you have to keep running the trains nonstop to keep the tracks clear and the rails warm, which actually costs a lot of money because you're electrifying nonstop now, and of course you have to pay overtime to them as essential personnel, so they have to work overtime. So the T is expensive, and I think people don't appreciate it enough, particularly on snowstorms and really cold days where the tracks freezing over is absolutely positively cannot happen.
Right. Yep. There was commuter rail had some issues for obvious reasons, but the actual rapid transit did pretty good.
Yeah, it's electrification of subways. The commuter rail is, diesel driven.
Right.
So it's a totally different conversation when you have diesel driven. The electrical system in particular of the tracks need to stay warm. And the only way we can do that is just keep running the trains nonstop. So
yes,
I do understand, again, it's not perfect. The fact there was no major delays during the snowstorm and no major delays today that I'm aware of so far.
No, there haven't been. Yeah.
It's remarkably, good shape. But again, I remind folks, people think the T is kind of like cheap to operate. It is absolutely not cheap. And your electrical prices are probably spiking a little bit as well. And the MBTA's biggest single budget is electricity.
Makes perfect sense. Sure.
Yeah, not far behind by debt service. And I won't make commentary about certain groups about their government level debt service, but the MBT debt service is extraordinarily high, and the MBTA is bonding a lot of money to get your T up to shape, which is, again, costs us money, and no one wants to hear that, but it's true.
Yeah, well, but we didn't see the catastrophic shutdown that we did, 10 years ago during Snowmageddon.
Yeah, I think it was Beverly Scott that was running it.
Yes.
The Val Patrick's period move to bring someone from Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they get an inch of snow and it shuts down the whole city.
Yeah. I mean, come on, people. I think you guys know what I'm getting at, right? She actually did shut down the system, the MBT system, which caused it to freeze the track. And then the whole thing just collapsed.
Right.
And the MBTA was always very troubled, even before Beverly Scott, but it just takes one bad general manager for the whole thing to go sideways in a very bad way.
And look how it's taken 10 years to recover. Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. And we have just standard maintenance issues. None of us could have anticipated the Braintree line having a tie failure. Those are the space stuff that holds the rail to there. We didn't. You couldn't have predicted the level of tie failure nor structural failure associated with the tracks. You can argue it may have been a result of 2015, but you can also argue that it's just material as well. So I'm not going to blame people for that. It does happen. I'm sorry, but it does. You do wear and tear in the system will eventually have some structural failures, which is why the took so long to repair everything from JFK to Braintree because you don't want to have a derailment.
Right.
Very frustrating for riders. I'm aware of it, but derailment means dead people, and I'm not interested in dead people. So
Oh yeah, no, that's crossing a line there. Yeah,
yeah, so I'd rather have people mad at me than seriously hurt or dead. I'm
sure.
sorry, but that's kind of my standard here. Angry at me is much better than the alternative.
Absolutely. In terms of the state plowing, have you heard any reports?
They're out there. I mean, they've been out there nonstop. People definitely heed the governor's state of emergency. If
Mm,
you were in the grocery stores Friday and Saturday, and the lines getting gasoline,
mm,
these past few days, this past weekend, clearly people got the message. The weather forecast was on the nose. We all know this is New England. You know, if a wind shift a few miles north or south of us, anything can happen in this corridor when we get a storm like this. And they were on the nose and they were out early. But there's also reality when it literally didn't stop snowing for 24 hours, plus an extra, 2 to 6, depending where you are today, plus the snow drifts.
yeah, just a
Um,
little frosting on the cake. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Just everyone's really happy to see that this morning. It's tough, and thankful for Mass Highway Department, well, the Department of Transportation now, as well as City of Quincy, DPW, and all the contractors out there who finally is making a bit of money after basically 4 years of not making a whole lot of money.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Snow, all that equipment people, private contractors buy was unused for, comparatively speaking. But also obviously affects the city and the state budgets when storms occur like this. Because you don't know what's going to come, you don't know how much it's going to be here as to weather. So, obviously we have reserve accounts to set aside for these type of events, and municipalities can, flex their budgets a bit on deficit spending associated with snow removal. But I mean, it's a tough storm to keep up with. I mean,
Hmm.
you're just out there nonstop. By the time you're done, it's piled up again.
Right. Yeah. And they're talking about another one this weekend. We'll wait and see what happens with that.
Yeah, thanks to new computer models, there might be another nor'easter type situation coming on Sunday. Unfortunately, we do not have a football game to entertain us this time.
That's right. This one might have some flooding concerns as well, which we didn't thankfully have this past time.
Yeah, we had a quarter moon, or I think it's I don't know what's the name of the moons, but I think it was a quarter moon. So
Yeah.
we had a moon that was not affecting the tides too much. The tide is going to be affected by a higher moon next week, depending what time it hits. So as a coastal community, the city runs the tide gates along the water. They do their best to try to keep that clear of ice and snow going into a storm. And it does, and be out there. They adjust the gates. So I mean, you got DBW employees out there, in frigid weather, trying to unstick tide gates around the city to make sure that they're open and close at the right moments when the tides are moving. No guarantee it's going to stop it if we get a major storm surge. There is a point where there's nothing we can do. I mean, it's just law. Nature's just going to take over. But you got the
Yeah.
new seawalls down in Ward One, along C Street and parts of Adam Shore in particular. They're a little bit higher up now, so hopefully that will,
Hmm.
reduce the storm surge issues. Hopefully it's not I don't think it's going to be a 50 or 100-year storm. I don't believe so. But
Doesn't seem at the moment, no. Yeah.
yeah, so I think we'll be okay. And the city, I give a lot of faith in the city, and it's DPW and emergency management folks to respond well to the storm events. I mean, we live in New England. I've lived here my entire adult life. I'm sure people listening to this have as well. It's not a first rodeo, and we're thankful minimal impact on power,
Hmm.
which is key. And we've been very fortunate on that front. I mean, statewide, I think National Grid had only about 300 outages directly related to the storm, which is
Yeah, it wasn't a huge issue, thankfully. It was, I think the consistency of the snow helped a lot with that.
yeah, it was relatively light. Although
Yeah.
I was laughing at watching the governor's press conference where some reporter said, "Well, it is fluffy," and I'm like, "It's still going to be 2 feet. I don't care if it's fluffy.
It's true. It's still a lot.
I mean, what reporter asked those dumb questions? It's like, oh, it's fluffy, isn't it, Governor? And she just had that look like it's still 2 feet, buddy.
Right.
I mean, you shouldn't. I just really just you scratch your head in these new conferences, Joe, and it's just like, what is this question?
Well, some of them probably aren't from here.
Must be because 2 feet is still 2 feet. 18 inches is still 18 inches. Last time I checked, my back still knows how much 18 inches is.
It's so true. Well, they're trying to get a little cutesy, I guess.
Oh, I mean, I think a degree of just basic common sense. I think the public can figure it out on their own. You don't have to spell it out for them.
Did you guys have to go into the State House yesterday, or was that part of the state of emergency?
State emergency were considered non-essential personnel, so the state house was closed thanks to COVID. As we continue to use, social media as well as video medium, as you can see, I'm at home again today. We can communicate. The rules allow for emergency powers if there's an extended state of emergency for us to do virtual sessions. Again, a COVID lesson. Thankfully, we're not in a blizzard of 78 type of scenario.
Mm.
The House can and the Senate can hold sessions in public hearings if the branches declare that the state of emergency justifies it to be so. Obviously, hopefully we'll never see another COVID in our immediate lifetimes. But I mean, it is not, impossible to find a blizzard of 78 scenario, but it's still very unlikely. So we have that going on. State House is open today. Most city halls and town halls are open today, while public schools are not. Always love the dichotomy between city government opening and public schools not opening.
Right, right. Well,
Right.
because of the younger children mostly.
Yeah, and a little bit of chaos for public employees as well.
Right, right.
So those, not everyone has a work from home option. So, we'll be in tomorrow for a formal session. We're going to do our required ethics training as a state employee. I have to go through ethics training every 2 years, as well as a certification of confirmation of reading the latest ethics rules, which they summarize nicely. I don't have to read every reg, but I have to read like 10 pages of summary,
Hmm.
which is almost like reading the whole reg, I suppose. And and we'll get that done tomorrow. Plus, we have a formal session where we have a small number of bills up on hand, which we'll go through just two of them because they have a little bit of interest. One is a bill to allow a percentage of apprentice to work on public works programs. So when it's a public construction, we're going to require a certain percentage of apprentices to be working on them.
Oh, I mean, like a new school or something?
Yeah, like if you're an apprentice for a pipe fitter, for example,
Hmm.
public works project will require a certain percentage of apprentices to be on site to do work.
Oh, okay.
This also helps address a work shortage issue in the near term. I mean, I don't think people realize that the trades are in high need of young folks to join the trades.
Yes.
And as older people phase out, people don't realize that one of the highest groups that got infected with COVID in 2020 was actually people working the trades. Because they couldn't. There's only so much social distancing you can do during construction, especially essential construction or essential repairs, in public works projects in particular. So there's been a bit of a shortage there, and again, we have a changing workforce in a highly educated area where it's not like we heavily encourage kids to go into the trades. I do, as I've talked about this many times, as an option for folks. So this actually will probably help address a workforce shortage we're facing in the trade programs.
Yeah, that's great. And there's also this misconception about the trades. There's a lot of technical expertise required. It's not just physical.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, the apprentices will be supervised. That's why they're apprentices. We just
Okay, yeah.
right.
But what a great way to get, hands-on training.
Hands-on experience and pay.
Yeah.
Right. You get paid, and it actually will not result in a project slowing down because of lack of labor. So
Mhm.
this will help that out quite a bit. And yeah, right about trades. I visited the laborers union, for example. They actually have essentially a college
Mhm.
where people who qualify for that union will go out there and spend like a dormitory situation, learning how to lay down pipe, OSHA safety standards, learning about torching, learning about high pressure systems, learning
Yeah.
about stuff. While they're not directly engaged in certain practices, like they're not plumbers and pipe fitters, but you
Yeah.
need to know the science associated with it because they lay stuff outside. They have to understand what they're doing. They understand the basic science of it. So when the pipe fitters go in to do the connections, there isn't like a disaster or something, right? And operating things like backhoe, you just don't get your heavy machinery driving license. I think it's the CLD. Um,
CDL, I think. Yeah.
CDL. So yeah, you actually have, that's where you get your training for that before you apply for your license.
Right.
So yeah, it is, laborers are skilled laborers.
Hmm.
And then, that's again, you have electricians, plumbers, pipe fitters, iron workers, tunnel diggers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can make good money. But again, you need to get, people who want to, work in these trades. So this bill we'll work on tomorrow will help address some of the workforce shortages and, put money into pockets for apprentice.
Nice. Very good. Yeah. Look forward to hearing the debate on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other piece, which just slipped out of my mind. This is a live show, as you can tell. I had a thought there and I just lost it.
Oh, no. It'll come
Um,
back to
it'll
you.
come back to me later. We have another bill that actually will have some real public impact, and then we'll do some minor local bills that only affect seasoned towns that the representatives come out of the so-called local home rule bills.
We talked a little bit about online gambling.
Yeah, actually yesterday I had a meeting with some folks about online gambling. For those who aren't aware, the lottery will implement their online lottery sometime this spring, late spring, early summer. Very interested about how to do that. There are bills floating around the states right now to basically create legalized casino style games on the internet.
Mm.
Now, many people are probably playing illegally, or maybe not,
Hmm.
but some folks are probably illegally paying over on places where your money disappears, you have no way to get it back kind of place scenario.
Right.
And this is actually cash, not like, tokens or
Yep.
things you play with, pseudo money, like real money.
It's not virtual. Yeah, it's real.
It's real. So, I mean, that's been a conversation going on. A handful of states already moved forward in this. My committee has a few bills, economic development, emergency technologies also has a couple of bills. And we've extended those bills to March 18th in the House. We're not sure where we're going to go. The Senate actually has also taken no action on the bills as well. So it's a conversation still going on. I mean, there's always conversation about, oh, you do this, people will flock, from illegal gambling to legal gambling, and it's like a 1-for-1. I mean, the real life doesn't work that way.
Mm.
And so I have a lot of questions about projections of revenues. I tend to have a lot of questions about addicted gambling. Been working with mass compulsive gaming, working with TPH for years now. Data sets is very important to get a sense of what's going on. The opposition's obviously brick and mortar, so MGM and Wynn obviously oppose this, as well as people working there. So unions like Local 26 and IBW 103 have employees in those locations, and they're actively opposing this bill. Even if we pass something like this, implementation time and establishing regulations will take well over a year if we go down this route. So I'm not sure what's going to happen. I mean, I'm really, really getting very lukewarm about this. The more I think about it, and especially since of internet gambling expanding with the online lottery coming up soon,
Mm-hmm.
predictive markets as we talked about last week. I
Yep.
should talk to Mark show too on Stavio.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's an interesting topic, I think. Yeah.
Interesting topic, but very intricate and detailed about the nuances of what's predictive market versus gambling, right? It's a very nuanced conversation about defining wagering, which I find amazing because most of us should know what wagering is, but it's the new technology and what is making it harder. And of course, we
Yeah.
have sports betting; it's already legal on top of that.
Yep.
And I'm sure some folks got the shirt taken from them that didn't live in New England that bet against the Patriots this past weekend.
That was a shocker for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident one, they didn't beat the spread. And secondly, if you bet on Patriots, which is pretty much local fans bet on your local teams.
Sure. Yeah.
Did okay, I suspect. I haven't looked at the odds.
Yeah.
But
No,
I'm
I don't
sure
either.
a whole chunk of this country was betting.
Just got taken to the cleaners. Yeah.
Yeah, they were probably betting against the spread.
I'm
betting,
sure.
probably for the spread. They probably think Denver was going to beat the spread.
Yeah.
So I mean, they got their shirts handed to them. So yeah, no, this is the dangerous sports betting, right? The Patriots then gave an example of how a company which revenue is totally dependent on one type of product could get destroyed.
True.
and the odd makers are going to, and especially DraftKings and FanDuel, are going to really have to rethink their odds going into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that's the nature of their business, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to really have to rethink those odds in their spreads because there's going to be heavy wagering because Super Bowl, NCAAs are the two heaviest wager time periods. And you got predictive markets on top of that, which we still
Hmm.
don't know what they really are. And you can use AI to figure out, try to figure out what you think may happen. And I say this over and over again. I predict parlays, which is when you get to bet during a game on predictions on what's going to happen in players' specific circumstances. Are going to be very problematic with the future of AI. As an old fantasy baseball stack freak in my younger teens and 20s and 30s, um, you know, I cared about the time of day, the weather, the stadium, the turf.
Yep. Yep.
Lefty, righty, height, all these
All the
factors.
things, injuries, yeah, all the things, yeah.
Yeah, and there was no AI to help me out. I'm just staring at stats, trying to
Right.
figure out, before a game starts, my lineup for fantasy baseball. And, with predictive markets and AI and parlays, I mean, they're going to destroy the parlay eventually because, especially in things like baseball, where there's just so much stats out there that the AI is going to be able to give you, very good odd calculations and different potential outcomes on a parlay wager. I very much predict in 5 years parlays cannot exist anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, we'll see. Yeah.
Oh, they're going to get destroyed. I mean, if they're saying that player A is a lefty, player B is a lefty, and player B has a batting average of 345 against lefty batters,
Hmm.
and if it's a nighttime, the batting average goes up to like 380, and they find out that it is a sore arm with the pitcher. I mean, the predictive market, the AI is going to start running the calculations, say that just pick a random number. Let's say the number's like 85% chance that you're going to get at least a single. I mean, it's going to ruin parlays.
Yes, 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 yes. Interesting. With the online lottery, Jackie, is that going to be full lottery, all the games?
Good question. We're not entirely clear on that. I did not look at the RFP. Some games they're going to try to simulate. So basically, like a scratchies, it's not a slot machine because it's not truly randomized in a conventional manner, which is a longer conversation about randomization versus like a scratchy slash pro tab type scenario. But
Oh,
we'll put that aside for a second. But one of the big things that allows you to buy numbers games and Mega Millions online, so you don't have to truck to the convenience store. Which is one of the reasons I have problems with online lottery, is because the convenience stores get 5% of the cut
yes.
purchase. They get a nickel for every dollar you spend, which supports your local small businesses.
Yep. Yeah, it's a major part of small business, depending on how much volume they do.
Yeah, and we'll see how this adversely affects small businesses. They've been a part of the lottery since day one.
Hmm.
There's an argument I've been making for years that you can't just leave these guys out in the code. But I mean, the lottery is a business. Let's call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Bracken, Quincy guy, does a great job running it.
Hmm.
Lots of treasurers have treated more as a business than a public service component. It's part of good public policy. Um, and I'm aware of all the other negative associations with gambling, especially the lottery. I've been studying this for decades now. But the local cities and towns love that local aid money,
Hmm.
and
And it's unrestricted. They can do whatever they want with it.
yeah, I mean, literally, they can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
And like we remind folks, the idea of state support and things like local aid is try to help with a property tax mitigation. So the more money we put into the cities and towns, we're hoping that the cities and towns will use that money and help mitigate some of the cost of property taxes. This is the whole this has always been my complaint about all municipalities. The complaint about the fact that they can't help out on property taxes, but we give you all this unrestricted local aid plus
Right.
education money. And in some communities, it's like 60% of the budget is from the state.
Yes. Yep.
It's every city and town is different. So some places it's like huge portion of budget is basically a state subsidy, some are not, which is your tax dollars, if you play the lottery, your lottery dollars, being redistributed to communities with varying degrees of property tax revenue generation. Some of the more lower income and more economically challenged areas, property tax revenues horrific, be bad. Conversely, Quincy is actually a pretty good city. We have economic development. We have a steady population base, steady and growing valuations. Some parts of the state have declining valuations. So, the revenues, is provided, reflected the community's ability to generate revenue. And, we did massive Chapter 70 reform back during COVID on education money to update what is currently going on in our school system, because Chapter 70 did wonders with a lot of communities that spend that money effectively to improve their public school systems. So again, I mean, not to lament this issue, but I think it's underappreciated by the public how much the state provides money, that it's your money to Quincy and other communities to help support their budgets, because of the limitations of Prop 2.5, where they can only expend the budgets by 2.5% of total revenues generated, not property tax, total revenues generated. And then there's a complicated formula which I won't get into now about how it goes to your property tax at home. So you have that going on. Plus Chapter 90 roadwork money. We're going to talk about this again in the future. School building assistance money, which can be 40 to 90% assistance from the state on renovation and building new school buildings in your communities. And of course, direct aid. People complain about, your pork until it's pork coming to you, whether it be supporting local not-for-profit agencies or directly to the city for various departments. And, I can go through my emails at some point, but I mean, the Quincy Housing Authority, while, because I get emails of grant recipient programs in the city, Quincy Housing Authority is well past $1 million in the past year. Is it past $1 million? It's pretty close on capital projects. Well, Quincy Housing Authority is a private quasi-public not-for-profit. It's always largely part of the city. And we got a whole lot of other state programs that we support through the budget or support through bond bills as legislators that helps support the city, when against your tax dollars. People don't talk about it enough, but that's a big part of our partnership.
Sure. Do you know, any other states have online lottery sales? I
want to say about 8.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna have to monitor to see how they unfold as well.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Well, time will tell. Speaking of the governor, what do you think about her commenting on what's going on in Minneapolis?
Yeah, I've been very restrained on this stuff because, I mean, I'm not here to incite people's emotions. On a personal level, and, it's hard to separate being personal and official capacity. That's why I think it's very careful, or elected officials, any elected official, whether it be a selectman or a governor or a counselor or me, need to be very careful about words of how to state this, because while I do have many personal opinions, and you're welcome to ask them, yourself as well as anybody else, I'm also very conscious that whatever I say is reflective of the office, which is reflective of our constituency. And this is a hard lesson to learn from any newly elected. So let me get that out there first, right? So I've been in this watching many electeds for many years, and this is the lesson I learned. And the governor's, has been very careful about not overstepping our authority in terms of commentary, because we don't run it. But this will be the 6th death associated with ICE. 4 shootings, 2 we believe are in custody deaths. One I think maybe medically related, denied medical treatment of an undocumented. And then we had a shooting in Chicago that I forgot a lot about during the summertime. A Hispanic woman was shot 6 times, I believe 5 times. Survived. They actually tried to charge her, and they had to drop the charges because they had nothing. So you shoot the victim, charge her, then drop it because you screwed up. Then we have, sadly, the shooting of the Good shooting, and then we had the 2 Venezuelans that were shot, I believe in Oregon, that were supposedly human traffickers. I tend to believe they were human traffickers because that was their priority, but they're not just grabbing anybody. And then you have the most recent one this past weekend. And with cell phone footage, like we saw during George Floyd, as well as surveillance cameras everywhere, it's hard to argue with what the media has gotten their hands on for the public to see. And I don't necessarily trust social media entirely for these videos. I do prefer to see the news media, various ones they pick up. And it's gotten absolutely outrageous. The I repeat over again to friends, ICE and Border Patrol are not designed for crowd control,
Mm.
not designed for de-escalation. They don't know how to do it. You think about it carefully. ICE agents work situations where they pick up people that's been arrested. They do essentially immigration enforcement. A Border Patrol you see at the airports, right?
Hmm.
ICE. They're used to situations of pulling people over vehicles and talking about what's going on with them. There, you see them in the borders on the Mexican border, trying to keep people from crossing over. They're all unarmed, coming over. They always talk about these cartels. It's not like the cartels are running out with machine guns shooting border agents. I mean, this
Right.
kind of weird thing that people have this strange myth that the border patrols engage in gang wars, on the southern border. They're not. They're chasing people down, and in controlled environments. Now you put them in public streets with other Americans, and they just don't know what to do. And then they're hiring whatever, because when you have to offer a $50,000 bonus, which I learned is not really a $50,000 bonus, it's a $50,000 bonus if you complete your work time there. So you lose the bonus, you don't finish it.
Oh, interesting.
Plus, they all work way too many hours. Plus, they're only minimally trained. Plus, we don't know how they're trained.
Mm.
And this is why it's very difficult, because it's a conversation of what kind of law enforcement. And not all law enforcement is created equal.
Hmm.
And this is kind of the scary thing about this, right? And, Minnesota is a no assist state. State and local cops do not assist. Hence, ICE is out doing traffic control, right? They don't know how to do traffic control. I mean, border guys sit in deserts. There's no traffic control. They sit at toll gates, checking passports. There's no traffic control. ICE comes by the police station, pick up on documents. There's no traffic control. I mean,
Right.
this is the lunacy of common sense issues on public safety that we take for granted every day, that we see people that have no right, nor competency, nor ability to do something that what we consider day-to-day simple.
Mm.
And you move into shooting folks almost carelessly, shows just lack of quality of individual, whether lack of humanity or compassion. I and you have been seeing these very huge tragedies, even in local areas where sadly law enforcement is shot in the altercation, which is horrific. We've also seen law enforcement do bad things, which is also horrific. But at all times, even with law enforcement, causes not necessarily just shooting but bodily injury, everyone feels bad, including law enforcement. Law enforcement does not gleefully say we beat somebody up. There are our neighbors. These are people that live with us. These are people that live next door to us. These are people that go to church, go to PTO, go to sporting events, go take their kids to various things. Right? They're our neighbors and friends. These Border Patrol and IC folks, I don't know where they're getting them from, but they come from places where they clearly do not live with other people like we're used to doing with our local police, as well as state troopers, our National Guard, environmental police. I mean, you can go through the list of all kinds of different law enforcement. So it's a huge tragedy in so many levels, but also the negative image it has on law enforcement, which I repeat, is not all created equal. And this should not have been happening. When you see a video of 7 guys ganging up on someone, and then just shoot like at least potentially 9 rounds, and you have an administration that wants to make a statement with no evidence, and people believe that, which I find amazing, because we should have a healthy questioning of our government. It's a healthy democracy. Has all of us, really should question our government. But I'm shocked at how many people accept that with no question of what the administration says, about an investigation. And, I got an email today, which disturbs me, where they're asking for the deputization of public citizens. Of course, it's a Democrat, so this is clearly some bad partisan stuff. But, saying that, we should engage ourselves as deputized people. I mean, we're talking about some people actually talking emails to my office, like Civil War mentality.
Wow.
And it's like, what? I mean, this is stuff that's kind of getting really radical. And one of the things that, put aside the supremacy clause and legal issues here, I mean, confrontation between state and local police or county, depending what state you're in, and federal law enforcement is not something we need to see.
Right.
Because now you really have moved into the Insurrection Act, and law enforcement versus law enforcement, doesn't matter what branch of law enforcement we talk about. That is not a good situation. And people have noticed more so now in Minnesota that I think anyone really didn't notice in other places was, state and local police, are not part of crowd control. They're not part of, engaging the public. They're kind of in this really bad situation where the people they serve are getting hurt. But if the direct intervention means they might find themselves in a direct physical or deadly confrontation with IC and Border Patrol, and then it becomes a real problem.
Yes. Yeah. So they can see us trying to subvert the federal government, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And, people may not believe this, or take it seriously sometimes, but, everyone holds an oath, as part of, working certain other areas of government, including, law enforcement and elected officials to uphold the laws of the state and the Constitution. Now, clearly ICE and Border Patrol does not believe in their oaths, or probably never took an oath, for I know. I mean, who knows with these guys, right? It's such a black box. And the fact that they have masks on all the time, it really questions it, right? That could be your neighbor that's out there kicking the crap out of people, incredibly doing it. I mean, they're trying to protect their reputation hidden behind hiding their face, as opposed to here, if we know who you are, there's a heightened responsibility that we know who you are.
Yeah. Did I read about a bill being proposed here in Massachusetts about masks, face masks?
Yeah, Representative Hawkins has one out there. I mean, as I tell folks, local law enforcement controls their local police.
Yeah.
And your mayor and your police chief and your board of selectmen, are the ones that supervises your local police. And you could pass a state law if you want, but I'd be very shocked if any local police does that, as well as state troopers. I mean, obviously it's a SWAT situation and it's like a legit, crowd control and things get crazy, or you're going to go after a fentanyl shootout scenario. I mean,
right.
There's legit work reasons to mask up, right? Where you're going to a meth lab and you don't want to get poisoned. I mean, there's legit reasons, right? But I mean, I don't think any local law enforcement anywhere in the country has shown the propensity to mask up in a manner like IC and Border Patrol. I'm not aware of anybody doing that, because again, it degrades your faith in local government. And I get why people ask for these kind of bills and these things, but let's think this through, people. Use some logic here, right? And this logic is looking at your neighbor logic, because these bills are irrelevant in the sense that if you think your way through it, you want to have good relationships with your neighbors, and that includes government as your neighbor. So, that's floating out there. And whether we can affect federal law enforcement, the answer is probably no.
Right.
We can't tell federal guys what they can and cannot do. And it becomes a real quandary, right? Do you like this kind of email I got from constituents, really kind of bit it's insurrection-ish kind of mentality. You're going to prevent federal agents coming into Massachusetts on the borders? You're going to shut down federal offices here and tell the IRS office to empty out, tell the Federal Reserve office to empty out? I mean, I just don't know what people are thinking here. When I see some of these emails come in, I'm like, what? And it gets worse in social media, because that just feeds the beast, not, using your brain to think through this.
Right. Yeah. We're all supposed to be on the same side here, right?
Well, I mean, we all supposed to be ability to think by using our own, empathy at home. And we talked about this during COVID, and we talked about it during George Floyd. We talked about it during Asian racism, and now we're talking about this, IC and the Border Patrol guys, right? And it's very troubling. So, I mean, I'm going to be very careful. I mean, obviously, about this, it's a very sensitive issue. The governor, being the governor representing the people of Massachusetts, there's not much to add to what she says. Clearly something wrong. And you saw Greg Abbott coming in news as well from Texas, which is probably one of the easily biggest border patrol guys on the planet because Texas's issues associated with their border. They actually legit have like cartels on the other side of the border.
Yes.
It's not a myth.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like on the California border. This is like different on the Texas border is so big. So they have legit like real like gangster type problems, right? But they also have the same problem that a lot of places have. They're legit people that work every day that does nothing
Hmm.
wrong, that becomes victims of political stuff. And Abbott is now saying this is out of control.
Yeah.
And it's bubbling up, and politics being politics, the midterms are coming, and the general public, regardless of political party, I think has great empathy for people being hurt, and especially U.S. citizens, practicing First Amendment right and watching videos, and um, people just being brutalized, as opposed to the escalation. Notice these guys do not have any escalation training, none.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
part of money law enforcement is doing de-escalation. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I can get there and talk, and we'll let the governor speak for us in this particular instance. But I got other work to do here locally too. I mean, up till I have like 5 DUA cases come in 2 days.
Hmm. Unemployment, right? Yeah.
Right. We've talked about the impact on SNAP programs coming up. I mean, we have no federal funding for infrastructure. They're taking away our biotech industry. Um, we have this try to figure out if we're going to desire to try to decouple our tax system with certain parts of the federal tax system. The cost of living is high. We're trying to do an energy bill now, trying to figure out we can help you on your electric gas bills. We talked about this last week regarding the governor announcing trying 2 months of distribution rate relief for folks, and try to see if it can help you out there. Obviously we talk about storm just happened with a storm coming up. We have a lot of like day-to-day problems the state and local governments are working on, and it's getting overshadowed, and rightfully so in many ways, over the IC actions on U.S. citizens. But it isn't like I'm going to drop everything we're doing.
Sure.
Because you still need to keep working. And same thing happened during COVID. I didn't drop everything. We just kept on working. Same thing with BLM, and same thing with Asian racism.
Let's end on a lighter note. The How's Neck Chili Fest is coming up Saturday.
It is. I believe it's 1 to 4.
Yes.
It's local residents with the local chili recipes and some restaurants at the House Neck Congregational Church. Easy to find on Google Maps. All goes to good cause to help the church out. And it looks like it's going to be like a 20-degree, and if it's on the water in the wind, it's going to be colder.
Good chilly weather, yes.
Yeah, so I'll be by to say hi to some folks, just see how people are doing, and very much encourage again to support local causes that is important to you at home. It's how you support your neighbors is by supporting whether it be your local church programs or the Scouts or QCAP or Christian Resources or Y or Germantown Neighborhood Center or Interfaith Service or Father Bills or Dove. Doesn't matter. You guys all can figure out who to support, and I think that's a very important thing that cannot be overlooked. So yeah, definitely come to Chili Fest. They do an incredible job. If the samples are small, but when you get through like 20 samples, it'll be very full.
Yes, absolutely. All different varieties too. Vegetarian, beef, turkey, chicken, white chili, you name it.
Yeah, and it's a secret ballot, so don't feel like you're insulting anyone.
That's right. That's
And
right. Yeah, you get to vote.
You get to vote, and there's a bake sale too. So
Yes.
and the Boy Scouts are going to make some money as well. They have I think they're running the beverages.
Yes, they are. Yep.
So you get to help several causes at the same time. And
this is going on for like what, 65 years? It's a long, long time.
Yeah, I've been to, except for the COVID years, I've been to every single one, I think, at this point.
Wow.
Whether it be in January or February.
Right.
And then one thing they do miss is their fish and lobster dinner.
I don't remember those.
Yeah, that was in September before COVID. It was like a great deal for like $12.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like
that back.
Yeah, full trimmings. You go down, you have to make a reservation. Then you go down and you get a fish or lobster dinner. The lobsters are all caught in Quincy.
Yep.
And it's basically how fast I can get the propane tank keep hot to get those lobsters moving out fast.
Right.
So there's a bit of patience involved, but again, pre-COVID and post-COVID, given the number of events I go to and given the number of things I donate to, obviously I'm very aware of what was before and what is after.
Yes.
And opportunity to meet people is actually part of this job. And sometimes it's a good experience, and sometimes people just need to get stuff off their chest.
Right, right, yes. Well, either way, it's a fun time.
No, absolutely. So, support your local organizations, and we have the governor's budget coming out tomorrow, so that's going to be a lot of newsworthiness about how she's going to try to manage some of these federal deficits coming
Oh,
in.
okay, we can talk about that next week.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a lot to talk about. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but it's going to be a lot to talk about.
Okay.
And then, hopefully we do not get a nor'easter on Sunday, but if we do, as you can tell, I'm not looking forward to it as well. Everyone just be safe, heed local news on what's going on around you, and just be very careful, in general. But I will emphasize over again, don't live off of social media. Just, use local news like, the mayor's made announcements at QATV, but also, your typical local news stations, will keep you up to date.
Absolutely. Anytime they can reach out to you, right?
Yeah, 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. You can all reach out to me that way by phone, tackey.chan@emmahouse.gov, tackey.chan@emmahouse.gov. That's the email. Let's see how much anger I generate today, or no anger, I don't know. State Representative Tacky Chan as the Facebook account, so you can see my comings and goings. Again, we have an Instagram that goes with it. We're kind of doing some transitional stuff on social media presence. So it's a little slow. MAlegislature.gov is the state website. Very much encourage you guys to watch public meetings, sessions, look at your bills. All that material is up there. We do have state Tacky Chan at org. It is the resource page. You can go find phone numbers and help. I use the contact sheet there. You reach out to me. And of course, QATV at QATV.org. Joe will collect your emails and anything you want to talk about or hear us talk about, and he will, hear about you guys and what you like and don't like. And of course, check with Joe every morning for his 10-minute, in Quincy News, to get some quick updates about what's going on.
Thanks so much, Techie. Good luck if it snows.
Yeah, you too, Joe. I'll talk to you soon.